The fall and rise. The skies over New Geneva turned crimson at dawn, but it wasn't the sun painting the horizon. Commander Area Rise watched through reinforced bunker viewports as the Quarian warships descended through Earth's atmosphere, their hulls shimmering with energy shields that deflected everything humanity had thrown at them for the past 72 hours. "Status report," she demanded, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Orbital defenses at 0%, Commander," Lieutenant Chen replied, his face illuminated by the dying light of his console. "Paris sector has gone dark. Beijing, Moscow, and New York followed 20 minutes ago. We're the last command center still operational." Area closed her eyes for just a moment, allowing herself exactly 3 seconds of grief before the commander in her took over again. 3 billion dead in the first wave. Another 2 billion in the following counterattacks. Earth's militaries, once thought to be the pinnacle of human achievement, had been swatted aside like insects. The Quarian alliance had struck without warning, without demands, without mercy. Their ships had appeared beyond Mars' orbit just days ago, and within hours they had bypassed Earth's early warning systems and defense satellites. The first bombardment had targeted military installations, the second had focused on population centers. The third was clearly aimed at breaking the human spirit entirely. "What about the Geneva Protocol?" Area asked, referring to the last-ditch effort to deploy experimental quantum weaponry against the invaders. Chen shook his head. "The launch facility was hit 10 minutes ago. We've lost contact with the science team." The bunker shuddered as another bombardment struck nearby. Dust trickled from the ceiling, settling on the shoulders of the 24 remaining staff who manned the last functioning command center on Earth. They looked to Area, not with hope. Hope had died days ago, but with the simple human need for direction, for someone to tell them what to do in the face of extinction. "Initiate scorched Earth," Area said, her voice cutting through the silence. The command required confirmation from 2 senior officers, and Chen's face paled as he registered what she was ordering. Scorched Earth wasn't a counterattack. It was a final act of defiance. It would destroy all of Earth's remaining military data, weapons schematics, and strategic information to prevent it from falling into Quarian hands. "Ma'am," Chen began, but Area cut him off. "They've won this battle, Lieutenant, but they don't get to have our knowledge. They don't get to learn how we think. Whatever happens next, the Quarians will never truly understand humans, and that might give whoever survives a fighting chance." Chen nodded slowly and placed his palm on the biometric scanner beside Area's. The system hummed as it processed their clearance, and then the bunker's lights shifted to a deep red. "Scorched Earth initiated," the AI announced. "Data purge commencing. Estimated completion time 4 minutes." Area unholstered her sidearm and checked the ammunition. "Everyone, gather what personal items you can carry. We're evacuating through the emergency tunnels, split into groups of 3. Rendezvous at Outpost Echo if you make it." "Commander," a young communications specialist called out, her eyes wide. "I'm picking up something unusual on the Deep Space Array." Area frowned. The Deep Space Array had been one of the first systems to go offline when the invasion began. "That's impossible. Show me." The specialist's fingers flew across her keyboard, and a waveform appeared on the main screen. It pulsed with a regular rhythm, unlike the chaotic emissions of the Quarian ships. "It's coming from beyond Neptune's orbit," the specialist explained. "The signal pattern doesn't match any known Quarian communication protocols. It's responding to our automated distress signal." Hope was dangerous. Hope made people reckless, made them take risks when they should be focused on survival. But Area felt it flicker inside her chest anyway. A tiny flame where there had been only cold resolve moments before. "Can you establish contact?" she asked. The specialist shook her head. "The signal is encrypted in a way I've never seen, but it's definitely directed at Earth, and it's definitely not Quarian." Another bombardment struck, closer this time. The lights flickered, and several consoles went dark. 2 minutes to complete data purge, the AI announced. Area made a decision. Download that signal pattern to a secure drive. We're taking it with us. Move out now. The evacuation proceeded with military precision, despite the chaos erupting above them. Area took the rear position, ensuring that every survivor made it into the tunnels before sealing the blast doors behind them. The underground network had been built during the Cold War, reinforced during the climate crisis, and expanded during the resource wars. It had never been intended to hide from an alien invasion, but it would have to do. For 3 weeks, the survivors moved only at night, navigating through abandoned subway tunnels, sewers, and natural cave systems. They gathered others along the way. Military personnel, civilians, scientists who had escaped the initial assault. Outpost Echo, a decommissioned mining facility in what had once been the Canadian wilderness, became their base of operations. It was there, under the faint light of salvaged LEDs, that Dr. Elliot Santos made the breakthrough. The signal, he explained to Area and the other leaders of the growing resistance. It's not communication. It's a weapon. Area leaned forward, examining the holographic projection that floated above the makeshift conference table. Explain. Santos pointed to a sequence of pulses that repeated throughout the transmission. This pattern is designed to disrupt Corian shield technology. It's tuned precisely to the frequency of their defensive systems. How could an alien signal know the exact frequency of Corian shields? Chen asked, suspicion evident in his voice. Santos smiled for the first time since the invasion. Because it's not alien. Not exactly. The encryption is based on human mathematics. Advanced, yes, but recognizably human. I think we sent this to ourselves. Murmurs broke out around the table. Area silenced them with a raised hand. You're suggesting time travel, Doctor. That seems far-fetched, even given our current circumstances. Not time travel, Santos clarified. I think there were humans out there, beyond our solar system, before the invasion. Humans who knew the Corians were coming and tried to warn us. The implications were staggering. Humans with interstellar capabilities. Humans who had encountered the Corians before. Humans who might still be out there, beyond the reach of the invasion. Can we use this signal as a weapon? Area asked, cutting to the heart of the matter. Santos nodded. I've been working with the engineering team. We've designed a prototype that can amplify and focus the signal. In theory, it should disrupt Corian shields within a limited range. How limited? A few kilometers at most. We'd need to get close to their ships or ground forces. It wasn't much, but it was more than they had yesterday. More than they'd had since the invasion began. Show me, Area said. The prototype was ugly, a jumble of salvaged components and repurposed technology housed in what had once been a portable generator. But when Santos activated it, targeting a small drone they'd captured from a Corian patrol, the results were undeniable. The drone's shield flickered and died, leaving it vulnerable. Operation Phoenix took shape over the following months. Small resistance cells formed across the globe, each equipped with signal disruptors built from Santos's designs. They started small, ambushing Corian patrols, capturing their technology, learning their tactics. Each victory, however minor, provided more intelligence, more equipment, more hope. The Corians, for their part, seemed genuinely confused by the resistance. Their initial assault had been so overwhelming that they hadn't planned for a prolonged occupation. Their tactics were predictable, their patrols followed regular routes, and they seemed incapable of adapting to guerrilla warfare. They expected us to surrender completely or die fighting in the open, Area observed during a strategy session. They don't understand human resilience. 8 months after the initial invasion, the resistance launched its first major offensive. The target was New Geneva, symbolic as the site of humanity's last stand during the initial attack, and strategic as a major Corian command center. 3,000 resistance fighters, armed with signal disruptors and captured Corian weapons, struck from the underground tunnels in a coordinated assault. Area led the central battalion, emerging into a city she barely recognized. The elegant spires and green spaces had been replaced by utilitarian Korean structures and processing facilities. The air smelled of ozone and something alien, a sharp chemical odor that seemed to emanate from the invaders themselves. The battle was chaotic but decisive. Without their shields, the Korean soldiers proved surprisingly vulnerable. Their biology wasn't suited for close-quarters combat, and their weapons, while devastating at range, were unwieldy in the narrow streets and tunnels where the resistance chose to engage. By nightfall, New Geneva was back in human hands. Area stood on the roof of what had once been the United Nations headquarters, watching as resistance fighters secured the city and began the process of adapting captured Korean technology for human use. "This is just the beginning," she told Chen as they observed the cleanup operations. "We've taken one city. They still control most of the planet." Chen nodded, but there was something in his expression that hadn't been there before. A certainty, a resolve that mirrored what Area felt in her own heart. "We've proven they can be beaten," he said, "and we've captured enough of their technology to start turning the tide." Among the seized equipment was a Korean communication array, which Dr. Santos and his team were already working to decrypt. If they could tap into the invaders' network, they could coordinate resistance efforts globally, potentially even contact other human survivors who might still be out there, beyond Earth's atmosphere. As the sun set on humanity's first victory against the Korean alliance, Area allowed herself a moment of genuine hope. The road ahead would be long and bloody, but for the first time since the crimson dawn of the invasion, she believed there would be a future for humanity. She didn't know it yet, but far above the Earth's atmosphere, the signal that had provided their first weapon continued to pulse outward into the depths of space, and something out there was responding. The counteroffensive, the Korean command ship, Dominance, hovered over what had once been Shanghai, its massive hull blocking out the sun and casting the ruined city in perpetual twilight. Beneath its shadow, enslaved humans worked to construct extraction facilities designed to strip Earth of its resources. The Korean High Commander, Vax-Tol, observed the operation from the ship's control center. His 6 eyes narrowed in frustration. "Another outpost has gone silent," his second-in-command reported. New Geneva was just the beginning. The humans have taken back Seattle, Cairo, and now Mumbai. Vax-Tol's exoskeletal plates shifted in the Korean equivalent of agitation. "Impossible. Our preliminary analysis indicated they would break after the first assault. Their military capability was primitive, their defenses inadequate. We underestimated their adaptability," the second-in-command admitted. "They've reverse-engineered our shield disruptors. They're using our own weapons against us." Vax-Tol turned all 6 eyes toward the holographic display of Earth. Red markers indicated lost outposts, yellow showed contested areas, and green represented regions still firmly under Korean control. There was far too much red and yellow for his liking. "Call in the Second Fleet," he ordered. "We will crush this resistance once and for all." Unbeknownst to the Korean commander, his transmission was being monitored. Deep within the reclaimed city of New Geneva, now serving as the headquarters for the Earth Defense Force, Area Rise and her team intercepted the command. "They're bringing reinforcements," Chen confirmed, analyzing the transmission. According to this, the Second Fleet includes 3 dreadnoughts and at least 24 destroyer-class vessels. Area studied the strategic display before her. In the months since retaking New Geneva, the resistance had evolved into a proper military force. Dr. Santos and his team had made incredible strides in adapting Korean technology for human use. They'd developed portable shield generators, improved the range and power of the signal disruptors, and even managed to retrofit several captured Korean fighters for human pilots. But they were still outmatched in terms of space combat capability. Earth's atmosphere provided some protection. The resistance could hide, strike, and retreat before the Koreans could bring their orbital weapons to bear. But if a second fleet arrived, the balance would shift decisively in the invaders' favor. "We need to take the fight to them," Area decided. before the reinforcements arrive. The plan that emerged was audacious to the point of insanity. Using captured Quarian shuttles and the retrofitted fighters, the Earth Defense Force would launch a direct assault on the Dominants. If they could capture or destroy the command ship, they might disrupt the Quarian command structure long enough to prepare for the arrival of the Second Fleet. The strike team consisted of the best pilots and soldiers the Resistance had to offer. Many had been civilians before the invasion, teachers, engineers, artists, but the past year had forged them into warriors. They understood what was at stake, not just their own lives, but the survival of their species. The attack began at dawn, with a coordinated ground assault on Quarian positions around Shanghai. As the aliens moved to defend their extraction facilities, the Space Strike Team launched from hidden bases across Asia, their ships disguised with Quarian identification signals. Area led the main assault force, piloting the Lid shuttle toward the Dominance's main hangar bay. Dr. Santos, now serving as both scientist and soldier, monitored the signal disruptors that masked their approach. "Shields are fluctuating," he reported as they neared the massive ship. "The disruptors are working, but they've adapted since New Geneva. We'll have about 3 minutes once we're inside before their systems compensate. Then we'll make those 3 minutes count," Area replied, guiding the shuttle through the hangar's energy barrier. The moment they touched down, chaos erupted. Quarian security forces swarmed toward the intruders, only to find themselves facing weapons modified with their own technology. The human strike team moved with precision born of desperation, securing the hangar and advancing toward the ship's central control systems. Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, the retrofitted fighters engaged the Dominance's external defenses. These weren't the clumsy, panicked efforts of the early invasion. These were calculated strikes targeting sensor arrays, weapon emplacements, and engine systems. The human pilots, though outnumbered, displayed a creativity and adaptability that constantly threw the Quarian defenders off balance. Inside the Dominance, Area and her team fought their way through increasingly heavy resistance. The Quarians had never expected humans to penetrate their flagship, and their interior defenses were designed to repel boarding actions from other spacefaring species with predictable tactics. They weren't prepared for humans who had studied their weaknesses for months, who fought with a combination of captured technology and improvised weapons. 3 decks from the command center, they encountered Vax Tull himself, surrounded by his personal guard. The High Commander was larger than the average Quarian, his exoskeleton reinforced with what appeared to be ceremonial armor. "You are persistent," he acknowledged, addressing Area directly. "But persistence will not save your species. The Conclave determined your extinction centuries ago. Your potential is too dangerous to allow." "Our potential?" Area kept her weapon trained on the alien commander as Santos worked to bypass the security systems of the nearby command center. "You evolve too quickly, adapt too readily. The mathematical models predict that within 3 centuries, humans would surpass every member species of the Conclave. That cannot be permitted." It was the first explanation they'd ever received for the invasion. Not resources, not territory. Fear. The Quarians and their allies had attacked Earth because they were afraid of what humanity might become. Before Area could respond, Santos succeeded in breaching the command center's defenses. The doors slid open, revealing the nerve center of the Quarian invasion. Holographic displays showed the positions of all Quarian forces on Earth, as well as the approaching Second Fleet. The firefight that followed was brief but intense. The human strike team had the element of surprise, and their modified weapons cut through the Quarian defenses with unexpected effectiveness. Within minutes, the command center was secure, with Vax Tull and several other high-ranking officers captured. "The ship is ours," Chen reported over the comm system. "But the Second Fleet has just entered the solar system. ETA to Earth orbit. 6 hours. Area turned to Santos. "Can you access their systems? Can we use this ship against the fleet?" The scientist was already at work, his fingers flying over the alien interface. "I'm trying, but there's something strange here. Another signal, overlapping with the Korean communication network. The same signal as before. The one that gave us the shield disruptor technology. Santos shook his head. Similar, but more complex. It's communicating directly with the Dominance's eye. And it's coming from beyond Pluto. Before they could investigate further, the ship's systems began to respond on their own. Displays flickered, and the ship's engines powered up. A voice, distinctly human despite the slight electronic distortion, spoke through the command center's communication system. Defense Force Actual, this is Admiral Helena Reyes of the Earth Expeditionary Fleet. We've been monitoring your progress. Well done on taking the Dominance. Stand by for rendezvous. Aria froze at the mention of her mother's name, her mother who had been declared lost with the deep space exploration vessel Pathfinder 15 years ago. That's impossible, she whispered. The main display shifted to show the approaching Korean Second Fleet. As they watched, new signatures appeared beyond the fleet. Dozens, then hundreds of vessels emerging from what appeared to be fold space jumps. These ships were different from the organic curves of Korean design. They were angular, functional, and unmistakably human in origin. The Pathfinder mission wasn't lost. The voice continued. We found something out there, technology from a civilization that preceded both humans and Koreans. They left warnings about the Conclave and their policy of preemptive extinction. We've spent 15 years building a fleet and gathering allies among other species targeted by the Conclave. The display zoomed out further, revealing the true extent of the approaching armada. It dwarfed the Korean Second Fleet, which had already begun to alter course in response to the unexpected threat. We came as soon as we detected the invasion, but interstellar distances mean we couldn't reach you before the initial assault. The shield disruptor signal was the best we could do to buy you time. I'm sorry we couldn't do more. In orbit above Earth, the Korean Second Fleet found itself caught between the captured Dominance and the approaching human expeditionary force. Outnumbered and outgunned, they had no choice but to retreat, folding back into the space from which they had emerged. The victory was overwhelming, but it brought as many questions as answers. The existence of an advanced human fleet, the revelation of a broader galactic conflict, and the implication that humanity had a place in interstellar politics all challenged the assumptions that had guided the resistance. 3 days later, Aria stood in what had once been Central Park in New York, watching as ships from the expeditionary fleet landed, disgorging supplies, medical personnel, and soldiers eager to help reclaim their homeworld. Among them was a woman Aria had thought long dead, older, her hair now streaked with gray, but unmistakably her mother. You survived, Helena Reyes said, embracing her daughter. When we saw the initial attack, I feared the worst. We adapted, Aria replied simply. It's what humans do. Helena smiled. The Conclave feared us for exactly that reason, but they miscalculated. They thought striking first would end the threat we posed. Instead, they guaranteed that humanity would spread beyond this solar system, united by a common enemy. Together, they looked up at the sky, where the ships of Earth's new fleet hung like stars. The Koreans had struck Earth without warning, believing they could extinguish humanity's potential before it fully bloomed. Instead, they had only ensured that humanity would bring the war to them, and ultimately to the entire conclave that had sanctioned their extinction. In the years that followed, Earth would rebuild, its cities rising from the ashes, its people united by shared survival. But humans would never again be confined to a single world, a single system. The attack that had been meant to end them had instead scattered them among the stars. Adaptable, resilient, and now armed with the knowledge and technology to ensure their place in the galaxy. The Conclave's worst fears had been realized. Humanity was no longer an emerging threat to be eliminated, but a galactic power that could not be ignored or defeated. At her signal, space rippled again. But this time, it wasn't around the fleet. Instead, Earth itself seemed to shimmer and fade, becoming translucent, then transparent, then vanishing completely. Where? Drav couldn't complete the question. Earth hasn't moved, Chen explained. We've simply shifted it slightly out of phase with your dimension. Your sensors can't detect it. Your weapons can't touch it. We can do this with any of our worlds at any time. The implications were staggering. A civilization that could phase-shift entire planets was effectively invulnerable to conventional attack. Slowly, Grand Marshal Zivin nodded. I believe, Director Chen, that the Alliance Council will be interested in those diplomatic discussions after all. 3 months later, a historic treaty was signed aboard a neutral station constructed specifically for the occasion. The Treaty of Seoul, as it became known, recognized Earth and its colonies as a sovereign entity, the Phase Confederation, with full diplomatic rights within the greater galactic community. Commander Vrax, now serving as diplomatic liaison to Earth, sat with Dr. Sen in the station's observation lounge, watching ships from both civilizations come and go. Your people continue to surprise us, Vrax admitted. Our scientists are still struggling to understand the basics of phase technology. Dr. Sen smiled. Different evolutionary paths lead to different discoveries. You mastered faster than light travel centuries before we did. We happened to stumble upon dimensional phasing first, and kept it secret. Wouldn't you, if you discovered potentially threatening civilizations before they discovered you? Vrax couldn't argue with the logic. What happens now? Your confederation has technology that could potentially dominate the Alliance. But we won't, Sen replied simply. Domination isn't our goal. Exploration, knowledge, peaceful coexistence, these are what drove us to the stars in the first place. Many in the Alliance don't believe that. They fear you're simply waiting for the right moment. Sen shrugged. Time will tell, I suppose. Though I should mention, we didn't reveal all our colonies or capabilities, just enough to make our point. Vrax's mandibles clicked in what had become his version of rueful laughter. And there it is. Trust, but verify. Exactly, Sen agreed, raising her glass in a toast. To new beginnings, complicated as they may be. As their glasses clinked, Earth phased back into full visibility in the viewscreen behind them, a blue-green jewel that had forever changed the balance of power in the galaxy, not through conquest or domination, but simply by refusing to be underestimated. The Galactic Alliance had waged war, and humanity had responded with laughter, not of mockery, but of those who understood a much bigger picture than their would-be conquerors ever imagined.